Alright guys, we have the latest round of announcement and obviously hidden inventory is going to be here tomorrow after the update. Now, there are a bunch of other announcements here as well. There's probably only one thing which I feel is worth briefly talking about. But other than that, this video today is mainly going to be on hidden inventory banners, and I'm going to give some of my own personal recommendations on who to do be actually summoning for doing hidden inventory. Okay, now, in terms of announcement, I'm not going to read through all of them. You can read it yourself, and I'm sure other content creators will be doing it anyway. So I don't want to repeat the content. The only one I feel like personally I want to talk about is going to be this paid banner because it's actually going to include Ultimate Mechamaru and also this red version of Panda. And that's interesting because we haven't even had their own events or their own banners out yet, and yet they're being included in this SSR banner. Now, obviously, there are two ways of interpreting this. One is that they made a typo. However, I don't actually think that's the case because when I first saw the announcement on the packs, there was a typo where they were saying things like, basically they just copied the numbers from JP. However, they kept the currency as USD. So you see something crazy like 5,000 USD for 5,000 pay cubes. Obviously, afterwards, they realized it's a typo or someone pointed them out and they changed the update to actually have the correct numbers, etc. However, even after that, they haven't changed the description in this SSR pay banner. So that's kind of why I don't feel like it's a typo. And that could only then mean is that this is actually going to be all of the character actually included in the banner. And that to me is going to be very interesting because it kind of shows that on the global version they're not allowed to make changes to whatever banner or whatever was inside the banner when they were released in JP. And that's very interesting because we kind of saw this already when they released SSR Momo. It had to include Camel in that banner, even though on global the event for Camel wasn't out. However, because they were released together in JP, so that's kind of why they all had their inside their own respective banner, like they have both characters in their banners. But obviously on global they had to keep it as it is. And to me, the what's making this really interesting is actually the fact that this could potentially be a good indication that they are not allowed to have the update to standard banner any sooner than how JP did it. Because on JP, if you think about it, I think JP only had the standard banner update after when they released the green SSR Maki. And what that basically means is that for any banner event banners before SSR Maki, when you try to summon on them, they will only have the original 9 permanent banner characters. However, for any banners after SSR Maki, they would then be expanded to include all of those characters here. And if they have to keep it the same way on global as well, in terms of exactly who will be in each of the banners, then that could also mean on the global version, we wouldn't be allowed it to have the permanent banner update anytime until SSR Maki has been released. And if that's going to be the case, we're looking at least another probably like 2 months away from where we are right now. So if you are desperate to summon on Green Gojo or the Incomplete Domain Megumi, my guess is going to be we'll be still waiting for another 2 months till when SSR Maki is going to be released. So that's going to be my personal take on this, judging by the way they have done this paid banner. Now, in terms of this pay banner, by the way, if you are a pay to win player or just a dolphin, I would say it's probably worth trying your luck on this purely because how many characters are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 characters, and they are gonna be, in my opinion, the ones which are actually good. It's gonna be Incomplete Domain Megumi, Yuji Tadori, Green Gojo, Blue Momo, and also this Red Nobara. So to me, there are 5 out of those 12 characters who are actually very, very good. You could argue like potentially, oh, Nanami as well. Nanami is very good. So 6 out of those 12 characters are very good. And then you also get some interesting ones like this Blue Yuji and Red Panda who can work in certain situations as well. So I would say like overall, you would have like a 50% chance to get a very good character from this banner. So if you do want to try your luck for 3,000 pay cube to guarantee one really good character, potentially, 50% chance to guarantee a very, very good SSR character. I think it's probably worth trying your luck here anyway. So that's going to be my take on this. And then other than that, obviously, now let's move on to the highlight of this video, which is going to be hidden inventory. Okay, so hidden inventory. There will obviously gonna be 3 banners. We all know by now, even though it hasn't been mentioned in the announcement. We all know there's going to be this Team Gojo, there's going to be Team Geto, and also Toji. Alongside with Team Gojo, there's also going to be this reflection, which is very good. Alongside with Team Geto, there's also going to be this one, which is also very, very, well, I would say decent, not top tier, but probably solid top of A tier, etc. So they are going to be all pretty good reflections, and characters are going to be released in the game. Now, just to clarify, originally I thought they were limited characters, but we kind of all known like a week or a month ago, when JP made the announcement to confirm that these are not limited characters. They haven't been added to JP, however, but they would be eventually added to the standard banner. Now, in terms of the timing, like what I mentioned earlier, if Global have to keep the same content in the banner in the same way JP are going to do it. JP still haven't had the after the whole year anniversary with Sukuna, etc. Now imagine Global will be getting Sukuna at half anniversary, and even at that point, those characters, those 3 hidden inventory characters, are still not in standard banner. I would probably say we wouldn't see them in the standard pool till at least June or July on the global version. So you will be waiting for around another 5 or 6 months for them. Whether you want to wait for that long, it's going to be a decision you have to make yourself, but it could be very, very dry if you just kind of keep on holding all of your currencies and not making any summons at all, because this is a gacha game at its core. So what's the point of a gacha game if you're not going to summon at all for 6 months, right? So that's a decision you have to make for yourself. Now, if you do happen to have very, very busted account, i.e. you have Hollow Purple Gojo, you have Yuta, you have Incomplete Domain Megumi, then yeah, you can probably get away without having any of them. However, if you are missing any one of those 3 characters I just talked about, it's probably going to be a good idea to get the respective color from this banner just to make your account a bit more well-rounded, etc. Okay, now let's go through Satoru Gojo first. So I'm not going to read up all of his skills because you guys can read yourself. The main thing you kind of want to take away is that this is going to be a version of Gojo who can stay on the field indefinitely. He doesn't need to leave this field by turn 7. Now, obviously, there are going to be some trade-off because his damage immunity is only going to be for 2 turns rather than for the whole time. But he does have a self-buff ability which can give him self damage immunity and also buff his own curse damage, and that is going to make his ultimate hurt really, really hard, which is an AoE again. So he is just overall the best yellow DPS out there. Now, do you need this character or not? I have shown in my Illusory Tower that using purely free-to-play characters, i.e. just using Nobara, who's in the standard pool, and only using Recollections, which are free-to-play, like no gacha Recollections. So I didn't really have to use the likes of Unity or no standard or anything like that. I was using mostly SR Recollections and the ones from Formidable Foes. I can beat all the way up to floor 39 using just Nobara. Now, on floor 40 is where it gets tricky. I couldn't quite do it with just Nobara by himself, but I can beat it with Incomplete Domain Megumi. So, if you are actually going to talk about do you actually need this yellow Gojo or Team Gojo, I would say that if you already have yellow Incomplete Domain Megumi, you probably don't need him at all, because Incomplete Domain Megumi plus Nobara together is going to be able to do enough damage to what Satoru Gojo, the yellow one, is capable of doing. However, if you only have Nobara and do not have Incomplete Domain Megumi, you are still more or less fine. You are able to beat all the way up to floor 39. It's only going to be floor 40 where you are going to be pretty much just stuck. So that is going to be something you want to consider, and it's going to be more down to how far you really want to go forward in your Illusory Tower. Because even if you go past floor 40, let's say, you could potentially be stuck again on floor 45, which is a green floor, and then whether you're able to get past that, it's going to be kind of dependent on whether you have Hollow Purple Gojo. So if you don't have Hollow Purple Gojo either, it's really worse for you to get this yellow Gojo just to get past level 40 but then get stuck again on floor 45. That's, once again, I just don't feel like it's such a big rush for you to do that. So it's going to be your own personal decision on whether you actually want to summon 14 Gojo if you only have Nobara. But overall, I would say that in the long term, grand scheme of things, this is possibly the best yellow DPS. So you can't go wrong with summoning on him. It's just that how much incremental value he's actually going to bring to your account, and also whether you would actually potentially have a bigger gaps in the green department or in the red department because you're lacking Yuta or Hollow Purple Gojo, for example. Okay, so that's gonna be my take on Team Gojo. Also the regression that comes with Team Gojo, very good regression. It's basically just another version of non-standard. The passive is slightly different, but they're both very good passive. And then in terms of the actual main effect, non-standard is able to give 85% damage buff at the highest level. This one's able to give 90%. However, it's only for yellow characters. So that is basically going to be the trade-off. If you already have non-standard, this is not going to be like a much better upgrade. However, if you don't have non-standard, this is just as good as non-standard and even better if you actually have a yellow character, because with the break damage from this as well, you are likely going to be actually break the enemy straight away, which is very useful in the illusory towers, especially on floor 38 and floor 40. So a very good regression if you do happen to get it when you're summoning for Team Gojo. Okay, now let's move on to the green ones. Let me just quickly talk about regression first, just to get them out of the way. This one is just like another version of mutual trust. The damage reduction is slightly higher than Mutual Trust. Mutual Trust is able to apply 35% damage reduction, where this one's able to apply 40%. However, the passive, I would say, is not as good because Mutual Trust is able to give plus 10 curse energy to your whole team. This one's a healing. I mean, it's a good healing, but it's only for yourself. So, and normally you will play this on a support character because your damage DPS will play a damage buffing one, and support characters tend to be able to tank better than DPS anyway. So I don't feel like this is the most useful passive, unlike Mutual Trust, who can actually benefit the whole team. But this is still decent. And then on to the actual character itself, Team Geto. Now Team Geto is very interesting. Now I love his buff, debuff, sorry. It's basically split into two chunks. You're able to apply a bit of debuff by yourself, but also at the same time, if the enemy is actually gonna get hit by green type of attack, you're going to do even more damage because they do have a debuff just for green type of attacks as well. So overall, if you are talking about up against enemies who are not actually weak against green, this version of Geto is probably the worst debuffer amongst all of the one in the game, like even worse than his normal version, the blue SSR Geto. However, if you are actually up against enemy who are actually weak against green, then the value of this immediately jumps straight away. I would argue possibly even better than Incomplete Domain Megumi when you're up against characters who are weak against green, mainly because this can be stacked 4 times, and also you are able to do this pretty much straight away. Like look at how little curse energy this takes. You're able to do this straight away from turn 1, unlike Incomplete Domain Megumi who need to wait for his ult to be charged up first, etc. So I do feel like this is actually going to be very good if you're actually up against enemy who are weak against green. And then the other main selling point is that his ultimate attack also have an insane amount of scaling. Now this is 2000% scaling if you add them all together, which is on par with Yuta and also Green Gojo. Now, because he's a debuffer, his raw stats will be definitely lower than Green Gojo, and possibly lower than Yuta as well. But still, in terms purely like numerical scaling, this is actually the same as what they are able to do with their ultimate. And also because you are increasing your own break damage by 106% as well at the highest level, you're almost guaranteed to break the enemy straight away. Which once again, in illusory floors, like breaking an enemy early, is very important because you can then make sure they don't actually get to use their special attacks, etc. So that's going to be very strong. Now, whether you actually want to summon on this Geto is gonna be very much dependent on Mahito, because Mahito is obviously a free-to-play character who everyone is able to exchange for, and because he can already do green DPS, you could argue that you don't really need another green character because Mahito can do a lot of the work. However, if you actually play Mahito by himself, you also realize that purely as a green DPS, Mahito is very average. Like Mahito is probably on the same level as SSR Yuji Itadori in terms of purely damage for green characters. Like what makes Mahito really shine is more that his ultimate attack works regardless of enemy colors, and that's what makes Mahito so good. In terms of actual green DPS, Mahito is just pretty average. So you could actually then also argue that you maybe actually want this Team Geto in order to make your Mahito actually usable as a proper green DPS rather than just a standard DPS who can work against any color. So you can kind of argue both ways. Now, for me, this is something still have to test. For me, I know floor 45 is going to be one of the hardest floor in Illusory Tower, and that is a floor which is weaker against green. And I know a lot of people kind of needed both Hollow Purple Gojo and also Mahito in order to beat that floor. Now, I haven't actually reached floor 45 yet. I'm just a bit behind on my tower mode, but I should be able to get there soon. So if you are considering something on Geto, I'll probably suggest you wait for a week or two, just so that I can actually reach floor 45 first and just see whether it's actually doable with just Mahito by himself and maybe using like a Stole team or something like that. If not, then it actually would turns out Mahito by himself is not going to be sufficient as a green DPS, even for like a Stole team, and therefore you would have to get a second green DPS, which is either going to be Hollow Purple Gojo or Geto. And if that's actually going to be the case, the value of Geto is going to be increasing a lot by that point. So that's going to be my take on this Team Green Geto. And then lastly, Toji. Now Toji is a red DPS who is able to do really high amount of damage with his skill 2, which is like 500% scaling, which is very high considering his raw stat. And also because it's zero curse energy, you can actually do this every single turn, which is nice. His ult is an AoE as well, which is also very nice. And the other nice thing about him is that he's able to remove buff and or like nullify damage received buff that any enemy may have, and that once again make him very very useful in some of the harder content when the enemy may put on like a very insane buff with like 80% damage reduction, etc. So that's what makes Toji really good. And because of this utility effect, you could even argue that even though he's like a red DPS, even without the damage output point of view, the fact that you're able to remove buff is already kind of making him unique and very good as a utility character. And obviously on the actual damage output side, he has one of the highest raw stats out there. And then on top of that, he also have like insane damage buff that he have on himself permanently, like 50% damage increase for Taijutsu. It's just very, very high amount of damage dealing that you're able to dish out with Toji. So Toji is definitely going to be a very, very good character. My personal take is that if you do not have Yuta because you only started playing this game recently, etc., you 100% have to summon on Toji. Like Toji, out of the three characters, I feel like it's the most obvious whether you need to summon him or not. If you do not have Yuta, you 100% have to go for Toji, because otherwise you're going to struggle so much in the tower floors without a actual red DPS. Because for yellow, even if you don't have Gojo, at least you have Nobara, and you can get all the way up to floor 39 with just Nobara. Even if you do not have like Geto or Hollow Purple Gojo, if you have Mahito, you can get all the way up to floor 39 as well. It's okay to do that. If you do not have Yuta, it's going to be really, really hard for you to get past those stages, which are only weak against red, namely floor 30, 31, and 32. And I haven't tried a stall team on them, but considering the green color and red color are the polar opposite, Mahito is likely going to be taking a lot more damage for those floors as well, especially if I think floor 30 could be really tricky, floor 30 and floor 32. So I'm not even sure whether you can beat those floors with just Mahito without using proper red DPS. So for me, whether you need to summon, I told you, it's going to be very, very clear. If you already have Yuta, then possibly Toji is not needed. But if you do not have Yuta, Toji is like 100%. You have to prioritize him over all of the other two characters. So that's going to be my take on Toji.